I did want to go a bit back to the Diddy bit because I realised I only covered yesterday. And today Cassie gave testimony. So let's have a look at something to do with today's testimony with Cassie. ABC News. Let's just go into this one then.
All right, let's take you to New York now, where a key witness just testified in the sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. R&B singer and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura took the stand today. Now, we have to warn you, the details in this case are very difficult to hear. Let's bring in CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman. She's been following this case for us outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Katrina, can you go over just what happened in court today?
So we are currently hearing from Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. She walked into the courtroom today in a very tight brown dress that shows off her very late stage pregnancy. This is actually something that the defense was hoping not to have happen. They felt...
I wonder if, obviously the end of that was showed off her pregnancy, but the whole tight dress, that felt like it was trying to paint her, like anytime sexual abuse victims go into court, they talk about what they're wearing something too tight, all of that. The build up of how that was worded was weird.
The jury seeing her pregnant might make her seem more sympathetic to them. It looks as though they lost that battle in front of the judge. But Cassie has... And then
highlighting the complaint. Yeah, that's why these pagan news people I shouldn't support, but at the same time, this is the kind of stuff I've got to respond to, innit? It's like I've got to see what they're saying and say it straight.
Been testifying about her relationship with Sean Combs, how it developed from when she was very young. They met when she was 19, I believe it was. He first kissed her around her 21st birthday. And then we're starting to learn about how they got closer, how he started to exert what appears to be the government trying to show a pattern of control over her life. She was signed to a record deal with his company, but they only put out one of the 10 records that she was supposed to have. So he was in control of a lot of her finances. He got her apartments. She has started to testify about the abusiveness in their relationship and the sexual proclivities that he introduced her to, like voyeurism and something that he called freak-offs, where she would get male escorts or he would get male escorts, and they would engage in sex acts for anything from hours to days. And she also talks about how their relationship became violent, and she didn't know which side of Combs she would get in the morning. At one point saying that she didn't know if she made the wrong face, if he would hit her in the face. You can also see the government starting to try to lay out this racketeering scheme that they're accusing him of, where they say that he was running his company as a criminal enterprise. She says that his security guards and trusted assistants took part in keeping an eye on her, tracking her down if Combs couldn't reach her. We're on pause for lunch now, but she's taking the stand again any moment to continue their story, and we expect it to go on for the next few days.
And Katrina, before you go, I just want to make sure we cover what are Diddy's defense lawyers saying about all of this? They're not denying that he had some unusual proclivities, right?
You are absolutely right. In opening statements yesterday, they made it clear that they are owning up to a lot of Sean Combs' faults. They say that he's guilty of domestic violence, that he has committed assaults, that he has a really bad temper, but they're saying these are not the things that he's charged with. You know, at the same time, they do want to really make him seem more empathetic to the jury. You know, it was even just interesting watching Sean Combs in court today. I was looking at him during moments that might, you know, strike a chord with the jury, and sometimes I could see him, you know, looking at Cassie and then scanning them to get their reactions. But really, their defense is, one, that he has a lot of these issues, but they just do not align with the charges here.
Katrina Kaufman live outside that courthouse for us. Katrina, thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess we'll continue to
Welcome back to
look into
Stephen A.
this.
Smith
So something else started playing, but yeah, it didn't. It felt like kind of repeating the stuff that happened on the first day. I guess there was just talking about more of the same stuff with Cassie on the stand. I did see stuff talking about her crying. That didn't seem to go into any details of that. I guess like I'd have to go into much more of the longer videos. There's one here 4 hours ago. P. Diddy's ex Cassie reveals shocking details and explosive testimony. Be here all night if I do 27 minutes of this.
As I speak right now, Cassandra Ventura has taken the stand. Now, unfortunately, in this case, in a federal case, there are no cameras in the courtroom. There is no audio in the courtroom.
Not unfortunately, fortunately, yeah, so that we don't sit here and shame these women all over the internet, you scumbag.
We're going to do our best to report to you in real time what is happening with her testimony and analyzing her testimony in real time. And we're going to also be taking your questions about this testimony, about the case in general, as it progresses. So if you have a question, submit it on YouTube. We will answer it here on air. I'm not going to do it alone. I have with me here in studio Rich Schoenstein, trial attorney. Great to see you. Rich, thanks for jumping here so quickly. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Big day in this trial.
This is a big day because she is victim number one in this case. I think it would be fair to say we probably wouldn't have criminal charges if it wasn't for Cassandra Ventura filing her lawsuit in November of 2023. We all know that the videotape of her purportedly being beaten by Sean Combs in 2016 changed the course of this entire legal saga. It came up a lot yesterday. She came up a lot yesterday. And now her testifying for the prosecution, I think a fair argument is this case either rises or falls with her testimony. So what has she testified to so far? Well, first of all, she's quite pregnant. She's about 8.5 months, 9 months pregnant. She's 38 years old. She explained that she was with Sean Combs for 10 years. We're talking about a 17-year age difference. She admitted that during the course of their relationship, he introduced her to certain sex acts. She asked to describe the relationship she had with him. Quote, there were violent arguments.
17-year age difference starting at 19. My daughter is 19. Man, 17 years older than my daughter tries to talk to my daughter. I'm not going to say nothing. I've raised my daughter, not to put something on her, you know what I'm saying, but I've raised my daughter to say, like, to know, innit, just to teach her from young that a man like that is not going to have your best interests. Boy.
That would usually result in some sort of physical abuse, dragging, different things of that nature. Again, why is this important? He's charged with sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He's charged with racketeering conspiracy, a criminal enterprise, underlying crimes like sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction, and also transporting sex workers for purposes of prostitution. She went on to say that he would stomp her in the head if she was down. There was frequent violence. She would have black eyes. She would have bruises. She was asked by the prosecution to describe what a freak off was. And she said, quote, it basically entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so that I could perform for Sean. It involved Combs being able to watch with me, the other person, and actually direct us on what we were doing. Eventually, it became a job for me, pretty much. And by the way, this comes after the testimony of a male performer who says he was hired by Cassandra Ventura and Sean Combs to have sex.
I call him performer. That's mad, you know. Obviously, it's like the cock thing, yeah? But the way they're presenting this is like he wanted to like create his own porn like in the room, like rather than watching the video. That's mad. And her saying it became like a job.
With Cassie in front of Sean Combs. She described how their relationship was quite complex. Talking about these freak-offs when she was first introduced to them, she says, I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much. She explained how Sean Combs ultimately controlled a lot of her life. She talked about blackmail materials, so videos that Combs purportedly shot of her during these sexual encounters. She was concerned that they would be published, they would be released. Quote, he had many resources to do that. She was shown the 2016 video of that hallway attack, as I mentioned. She confirmed it was after a freak-off, which is important, because while the defense would say this is an unfortunate incident of domestic violence, and domestic violence is not sex trafficking, she has confirmed that this was after a freak-off. This was in furtherance of sex trafficking.
That's crazy. Not just in furtherance of sex trafficking, but in furtherance of her being involved in one of these situations, which she's saying there's force involved, and people are arguing that she willingly participated in. If there's an act of violence directly after, maybe as a result of something that's gone on there, then the next time this happens, that threat of violence is always there.
She says she was afraid that if she said no to him, it would make him angry. So again, we're going to get more of her testimony in real time. So far, Rich, from what I've said, what are you taking away from her testimony?
Well, obviously, this is a horrendous relationship, and she suffered a lot. I think the defense is arguing, in essence, that she was a consensual, willing participant in this relationship. It was a 10-year relationship. It had ups and downs, and the defense is arguing that some of the things she argues now she was forced to do, she did willingly and perhaps even enjoyed at the time. So that's what we're getting at. But this is really shocking stuff for a jury to have to hear all of this, and I think see some of it is coming up.
Don't you think that there is a potential problem for the prosecution? Because we heard it was funny. We have a question from TDB. Jesse, does the male dancer's testimony about Cassie contradict the prosecution's opening statement? Now, he had testified that he thought he heard Sean Combs slapping her, that there were instances where he saw him dragging her, but at the same time,
Yo, just to say, this guy's haircut is wild, yo. I know my hair's growing, and I'm wearing like a headband to hold it together. So my hair's crazy at the moment as well, but this guy's hair is wild.
he was getting paid by her. He was texting her. She was participating in these freak-offs. You wonder, this case is a thin line. Was it coercion or not? Was she a victim or partner in this? Do you think when you hear the testimony of that male dancer and you hear her testimony now, it'll be difficult for the jury to believe that everything was coerced and against her will?
I don't think the jury is going to believe that everything was coerced and against her will at the time, but it doesn't have to. There's a massive power imbalance here. So even if she willingly participated for parts of this relationship, he has all of the power and he's using it. And the one thing you mentioned, I wrote down, blackmail video. That stuff's really important to the case, right? This is carrot and stick territory, but he kept, allegedly, things like these videos to keep people in line. And the allegation here is if she sort of got a little bit antsy about how the relationship was going, he would threaten to release videos that would destroy any chance of her having a career.
And of course, I 100% believe that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, 100% believe that. And that is, revenge porn. It's a sex crime in itself. And maybe back then it wasn't. I don't know what the law was, but morally, yeah. Because I watched this. I watched this documentary podcast with Talisa N-Dubs. Yeah, big up N-Dubs. Recently. I don't even want to talk about her thing on that case, but she spoke about it in that incident. But she spoke about having a sex tape leaked, and she pointed out that, like, had that happened today, that would have been a crime. But when it happened, it didn't. It was like it kind of ruined her career in a lot of ways. Yeah, I never respected it at the time. I didn't know that guy. Yeah, the mad thing, I won't say his name. Like, I've always, whenever I see that guy pop up, and the mad thing is I saw him pop up performing at somewhere with one of my friends the other day. My brethren was like literally posting the thing, oh yeah, me and my man, like, and I thought, oh, that dickhead. Yeah, I've never rated, like, you don't have like sexual relations with women and then shame them for it. Like, that's never been a flex. Do you know what I'm saying? But it is a crime now. Yeah.
Defense would say the only.
But like back then, I'm saying, like, yeah, I don't know if it was. So that kind of threatening, that kind of thing might have been more common.
got a little bit antsy about how the relationship was going, he would threaten to release videos that would destroy any chance of her having a career.
The defense would say the only person that was in possession of the videos was Cassandra Ventura. That's a point that they made yesterday.
That's an evidentiary point. I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this. We have a question from Lauren, who, by the way, has this cute little emoji, smiley face with the hearts. I like it. It's nice. I have a question. Do you think now that the prosecution has played their ace with Cassie, that they have more damning evidence to come?
I would expect so, because when you're prosecuting a case like this, you want to start strong. And I think some of the idea of putting her on in day 2 of this trial is to start strong. They put on a little corroborating testimony first, right, from this dancer, escort, whatever you want to call him, and now they have her, the security guard, and they get to show the video, that horrible video, and now she testifies. But it can't be the prosecution's plan to try this case that now they're just going to wind their way through some other inconsequential witnesses. I mean, they have 2 more victims, as I understand it.
Well, let's talk about this. The practical reality is, A, they need to get her on the stand before she gives birth, okay?
Well, that's true, too. That's true. Good point.
Yeah, because victim 3 is nowhere to be found, so they may have to make sure that victim 1 is still available. But also, I agree that they...
Victim 3 is nowhere to be found. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on over this trial. What do you mean there's a victim that's nowhere to be found? Does that mean he's got to someone already and threatened them or leaned on them to back out?
Started very strong with corroborating evidence before they brought her on, because what happened? When she filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, made these wild allegations, I think people said, how do we know this is true or not? As soon as that video was released by CNN, the whole game changed, because people not only believed that particular incident in the complaint, they believed overall all the allegations that she made, and it seems the prosecution is doing just that. Now, it's interesting thinking about this. By the way, I'm going to give more updates about her testimony. So right now, Ventura said, I thought we were monogamous. The prosecutor asked, was it made public? No, I was his artist, also his family, his children, meaning their relationship wasn't public yet. Who was linked to him publicly? Kim Porter. Miss Ventura responds, how did Sean treat you at this time? We had fun. So a lot of this...
Kim Porter, who mysteriously died, and a lot of people believe Diddy was responsible for killing. Let's never forget that. Let's never, ever, ever forget that.
Is talking about the beginnings of their relationship, and she has to concede some points, right? She can't just say, it was a disaster at the very beginning. I hated him from the very beginning. I was under a distress from the very beginning. There has to be an aspect to it where she explains, no, I started this relationship. I was young, I was excited, but then it devolved, right? In order to be credible on the stand about the story, I think.
I agree with that, and also to acknowledge that there were benefits to her of being in this relationship. It would, at least in theory, help her career. It would get her to meet people that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet. So all of that is true. There's nothing wrong with her conceding that, because none of that justifies being dragged down a hallway and beaten.
Exactly. And by the way,
these guys, let me just say, these guys' coverage, when we watched that CBS and Fox News rubbish a minute earlier, that was very, I don't know, I didn't like the direction a lot of that shit was reported, but these guys seem to be a lot more balanced, and they're just giving, even though these are the people that reported the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial that I hated how it was presented. But they did it. I guess they showed the trial, innit? People got to watch it, and then it was the rest of the media who turned it into a circus.
By the way, we jumped on here on air immediately as soon as we found out that Cassandra Ventura was officially taking the stand. And one thing that makes Law and Crime a little bit different than other outlets like that is our viewers. Not only do we value our viewers, but we are making content right now purely for our viewers on YouTube. We want to give you the most up-to-date information about this case in real time. And again, we are the only channel, the only news organization that is producing content for you specifically. We value that. YouTube is where the most hard cutting edge news is coming from, and we want to get it out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you so much to our supporters. We are going to continue to take your...
I guess maybe I wasn't going to do this whole video. I'm 10 minutes in now, so further the way through. But yeah, maybe I guess I'll continue to react to these guys' videos. I don't know if I can do it every day. We'll see.
Questions for for a while now, because she's going to be on the stand. So let's keep it going. Again, thank you to our YouTube audience. Jane, are there any more witnesses to Cassie getting attacked by Diddy apart from the bodyguard? I mean, I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a videotape, so that's kind of a witness. But yes, I would imagine there are other witnesses who are going to talk about the relationship and probably talk about some of the physical stuff.
Well, they mentioned chiefs of staff. They mentioned a chef. They mentioned one of the questions from the defense yesterday was, how is this a conspiracy, right? For a conspiracy, you need 2 or more people to agree.
Yeah.
Who are the people that coordinated and facilitated this racketeering and sex trafficking operation are not criminally charged?
So I see 2 major hurdles for the prosecution in this case. One is what we've been talking about. They have to get past the idea that this is consensual behavior by other people who are behaving in a questionable fashion. They have to get past that. The second bigger hurdle to me is turning an abuse case into a racketeering case, right? Because yes, they have to prove RICO is very challenging. You have to prove a RICO enterprise. You have to prove a pattern of racketeering activity. You have to prove multiple predicate acts that are violations of separate federal laws. It is hard to sustain a RICO case. We've seen some other cases where people have tried. That's going to be a major hurdle here. The fact that he had this 10-year relationship, and even...
We don't know it's all going to be around these relationships. We don't know what else they're going to put forward. I don't know, innit? He's been accused of killing his wife, ex-wife Kim Porter. He's been accused of having Tupac killed. He's been accused of loads of stuff. So, don't know, innit? I mean, it seems like the case is going to just be around these things. And they may be able to put that together. Like they're saying, like his security being involved in covering stuff up, etc. His whole team being involved in facilitating and covering up all these crimes is still an organized crime network and can be argued, isn't it?
If it's arguably true, he took advantage of her, he treated her horribly, he beat her, he did all these terrible things to her. That's not racketeering.
I say that the prosecution spent so much time yesterday in their opening statement trying to explain to this jury why it's a crime. Because it's not a garden variety trafficking or racketeering case. And I think the more they have to explain it, that's a problem for them. I think it's a weakness in their case, personally. Now we have an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassandra Ventura, what was his lifestyle like? Ventura responds, he had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit. And then apparently she's shown a photo, and she says, this is Sean and I at a strip club in New York, like 2007, 2008, Halloween. How did Sean Combs' moods vary? Day to day. Now look, he is charged with specific crimes that John Smith on the street can't meet. There is an argument here, very powerful, had all these businesses, different resources, different employees. He would be in the position to be able to carry out a sex trafficking or racketeering operation. That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure, but is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it. Do you think
both.
Cassie Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%. Well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to. I think we need clarification. 82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
But that's my answer to that question.
I don't like that question. I'm not saying these lot are better. I don't like the question. Like, why are we? Let's stop that. Let's stop leaning into these narratives that even question a victim and survivor as participants, etc.
Oh, okay. 82% say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah.
But that depends where you ask. You know what I'm saying? Go and ask, I'm just bait. Just ask that poll and I'm just bait and see if they say the same thing.
I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come. So she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity. And that's an interesting point that wouldn't just apply to her. Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, what do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight. I'm not going to pay the dancer. That's what's going to happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or force. Question from Angelina. How old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old, so you're talking about a 17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's older and obviously has much more power anyway.
Sherry Williams asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty? Do you want me to? I have it listed unless you want me to answer that one.
I would say life in prison, but you can tell me specifically.
So this is exactly what he would be facing. So if he's convicted of 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, I pulled this up because I figured people might be curious. If he is convicted of racketeering conspiracy, the top charge, that is a maximum sentence of life in prison. You know what the minimum is for that? Well, okay, so that's life in prison. Maximum sentence for sex trafficking, life in prison. You know what the minimum is for sex trafficking? 15 years in prison. And then the transportation for purposes of prostitution carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Rich, I have to tell you, I don't know about racketeering. I don't know about sex trafficking if he's going to be convicted of those. I am fairly confident he's going to be convicted of allegedly transporting sex workers with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Their argument, as far as I understood yesterday, their defense yesterday was he hired people for their time and experience.
Let me tell you something. If he gets out of this trial only convicted of transporting for prostitution, that is a defense victory. That they would take that in a heartbeat, I bet.
Because I think if he is convicted of that, he might not get 10 years. He might get, a shorter amount and time served, his time already in the MDC. I don't know, but it wouldn't be life in prison. Wouldn't be 15 years.
Yeah, he might not get full 10 years. He might not get the hardest prison term, the hardest prison life, right?
I do have to say, this trial's happened quickly. I don't know how often they happen this quickly, or I don't always pay as much attention. Like this one I've followed, feel like since everything's been reported. Like, obviously it's in a different country, but the Tate brothers trial for sex trafficking, that's not moving anywhere. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Like, it's not as much as they love to report it, it's not been forgotten. But this started way later and it's happening already.
Would get out, he would still have a life, he would still have his enterprise. So I think that would actually be a defense victory, all things considered.
So we have an update from court. I think she's describing what the alleged abuse was like. She talks about anger, zoning out. She was asked, how did this impact you? She says, greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. She also apparently talks about psychological abuse. He'd tell me to watch my mouth, change my face. So, I do wonder... That has a strong impact, because there's another case that we're covering right now. It's the Alexander brothers. And they're being charged with sex trafficking. And the argument you hear from defense attorneys is this is a very novel way to charge individuals. That if you're talking about romantic relationships or girlfriends or flings, and you're taking them on trips, you're paying for their meals, you're buying them gifts, maybe you're promising things, romantic gestures, are we now in a position where romantic relationships are just on the line of sex trafficking, or where does it differ?
Well, here he is allegedly bringing in prostitutes to participate in these freak-offs and paying them for sexual services. So that, to me, would clearly be sex trafficking if it's true. It's not just about the girlfriend. It's not just about the relationship. It's about these sex workers that he is moving about.
We have a question from Trune. What about male victims? Seems like this case is solely based on women victims.
is an interesting thing, right? It's something I was going to say earlier. Who knows what they're going to say here? But I was saying, yeah, Cassie gets a lot of bad comments in the comment section. But I was comparing to the Johnny Depp case earlier. I was thinking that the reason he can't pull off, I mean, obviously Johnny Depp's a white man in America using his privilege, but there's also like the fact of his base, like as far as Diddy's base of support not being there for him the same way Johnny Depp's base of support is there, is because of the gay stuff. Any of these, like all of these like gay stories that have come out, you know, in hip hop culture or whatever, it's quite homophobic. They're not hearing that, and there's a lot more concern about him doing gay stuff than there is about a video of him beating up Cassie that we've all seen, which is quite a sad thing.
This case appears to be based on women victims. I mean, I've heard speculation too about male victims. I don't know where that stands.
Well, there's lawsuits. There's
Yep.
a lot of lawsuits that have
Yep.
been filed by male victims, and I wonder, do you think that was intentional for the prosecution to not include those in this case? I mean, why weren't minor victims? Let me say this. He has been accused in lawsuits of abusing minors, okay? Allegations, accusations, okay, never been criminally charged. If you're the prosecution and you want a slam dunk case against Sean Combs and you want justice for all of the alleged federal crimes he committed, you know, the problem with the minor victim for a defendant like that is there's no consent defense anymore. Do you think it's like we want to be as specific as possible with these charges? We don't want to make this case overly broad. The bigger it becomes, the more risk it'll fall down. Thoughts?
I don't buy that. I think the prosecution wanted as many victims as it could get. But I think the prosecution had to scrutinize every potential victim to, first of all, are they going to show up, right? We have an issue with one of the three, whether or not they're going to show up. So they had to scrutinize that. And also, how are their claims? How are they going to be on cross-examination? How is it going to play? They wanted multiple victims. The only way this case is what it is because there are multiple victims. This is not a RICO case if it's just what he did to one person, no matter how horrible it was. That doesn't get you to racketeering. So they need the multiple victims.
And that brings up a good question I have. If you read the indictment, let me rephrase that. There's been many superseding indictments.
Yeah.
It says alleged victims, right? Alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. But then it says victims including, like victims, many victims, including alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that mean we're going to hear other people who are not enumerated as one of the alleged victims, but are just other victims in the case? Because I don't.
It could be. They could
Yeah.
bring people who are other victims in the case, especially the way the case is pled, the way the case is being tried. Now, they would have had to tell the defense by now who those potential witnesses are, and I assume, well, I don't know if we would have heard about it in this particular. Usually you would have heard about it. You would see it on the docket, but I don't know.
So talking about this alleged criminal enterprise and how, based on the opening statement from yesterday, he didn't just have staff who were helping him commit the crimes but also covering them up. Just now an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassie Ventura, how would he keep tabs on you? To which she apparently responds, we didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me or a trusted assistant. Like who? David James, Christina Coram, who we all know has been a central figure in this case. Maybe not the criminal case, but she's come up in lawsuits before. The prosecutor asks her, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura replies, no. If she's naming names like David James or Christina Coram, do they have to testify, you think?
I don't think they have to testify, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would think this is all planned out, that she's going to indicate some people and then the prosecution is going to bring them in later in the trial to verify, right? One thing you really want to do with a witness like this, the defense is going to say that she's embellishing. They might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video, right? They can't just say she's a liar, but they're going to say she's exaggerating, she's embellishing, they're painting it a certain way because of the case. So you have to bring in these corroborating witnesses and whatever other corroborating evidence you have to verify what it is she's saying. So it would be very useful, for example, if she says, yes, David James came around to check on me on behalf of Mr. Combs, and then David James takes the stand and says, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Well, and yesterday they talked about the defense, her lawsuit in 2023, her attorney being in the courtroom, that she has an incentive, a monetary incentive to fabricate this situation. Got a question from...
But how does she have a monetary incentive if she already got paid? So this is done now. Do you know what I'm saying? In my head, I was thinking like they could summon you to court and make you, but they were just saying they couldn't make people do like speak or whatever. So I am very much thinking that she's there because she wants to be there speaking about this and wants the stories to be heard. She's already been paid. She's not going to get paid anything for this case. After this, she's just setting the record straight.
Daniela, by the way, we're taking your questions on YouTube about this case, about Cassandra Ventura's testimony that's happening in real time. We're trying to update you as quickly as possible about what she says in that courtroom. No cameras in the courtroom, no audio in the courtroom. So this is the best we can do to bring you her testimony in real time. Question from Daniela, 3984, talking about the video. What version of the hotel video was played in the courtroom? Was it the sped up version? Now, I believe it was portions of the surveillance video, not the CNN video, and cell phone video that was taken by the security guard who testified, Israel Flores. He had apparently taken a cell phone video of the surveillance footage to show his wife, but that became a big pretrial issue about what the jury was going to see.
Yeah. And by the way, that story was a little odd. I took a video of it to show my wife. For what purpose? I mean, that was a little strange.
Well, you're not going to believe this happened, even though he didn't report it to the police.
I think it's going to be difficult. I think the defense would like you to believe that video's been doctored somehow, but I think they're going to have trouble sustaining that.
Hey, would you like a civil law question?
Yes, please.
Yes, this is our litigator here. Question from Teodora Bodurova. Can Cassie sue Diddy again if Diddy's found guilty as charged?
So, Cassie, if you remember, sued Diddy. And that was the first thing we really heard about this. That was before the video. There was this blockbuster lawsuit in November of 2023 that really put these allegations out there. And she was very detailed. In fact, the front page of her lawsuit had a trigger warning on it. It was so detailed. That case was settled the next day. And I would have to think that the settlement included an agreement that she wouldn't sue him again for anything. Usually, if you're going to settle like that and pay the kind of money she would have gotten paid for settling that lawsuit, you get what is known as a general release. And a general release means you don't sue me for anything that happened. Now, here's one caveat. Up to the date of this agreement. Up to the date of this agreement. So then if you the next day punch me in the face, I have a new lawsuit against you.
Yeah.
Right? But at least up to the agreement, she can't go back now and say, I want more money.
Well, for the same conduct, right? I mean, if he comes out and he did something to her, or allegedly did something to her after the agreement was signed.
Yeah. Presumably they got it. And it also, you have to make sure the release covers all of his companies, all of these other individuals who were involved. It has to be a general release of everybody. You don't want to leave any wiggle room to have a lawsuit.
We have a follow-up question to this from Fads. So why did he settle if he was innocent?
Well, I mean, people settle.
I don't want to hear what rubbish this guy's going to say for playing devil's advocate. We already established that 50 Cent put it out. You wouldn't settle that quick. He settled that quick because he didn't want any of this going through trial. He didn't think it was going to then lead to a criminal trial, federal trial, whatever this actual trial is. But it happened anyway. So he's like, shit, I paid out the money and I got to do this.
All the time when they think they're not liable. People, with the thing that really surprised me when that case was filed is that the case was filed. Typically in a case like that, you draft the complaint and you send it to the defendant and you say, dear sir, please pay me a boatload of money or I'm going to file this publicly in court. And if
well, apparently she did do that first. Maybe that's just assumption, but I read a lot of things that reported that she attempted to ask him for 30 million to not go to not file it, and he ignored her, and then she filed it and he paid the next day. That could be bullshit though. I think a lot of things do seem to just be assumption on social media these days.
There's any merit to it, or if just for publicity reasons the defendant decides to negotiate and pay, and it never goes to court. So it fascinated me at the time that she actually filed that publicly and he settled it the next day. That unfortunately was pretty telling, that he didn't put up any fight on the lawsuit. He didn't even want to litigate it. He didn't even want to go to discovery. He wanted to settle it immediately.
And if he would have settled it before she filed it, I think we would have been in a very different position than we are today.
Oh, I totally agree, because that lawsuit, I think, is what sets this ship sailing.
I agree. Okay, update from court. Prosecutor asks Cassandra Ventura, did you see other men? Cassandra Ventura responds, yes. Prosecutor asks, did Sean see other women? Ventura responds, yes. He said, I am Puff Daddy. I was insanely jealous. Did you move to LA with him? Yes. He wanted to be close to his kids who were there. It goes to a theme from yesterday, where the defense owned up and said, yeah, he's jealous, he's angry, he's violent. He engaged in domestic violence. That 2016 video is indefensible. When you hear her testify like that, does it help the defense? Does it help the prosecution? Because the defense got in front of it. They didn't say he's a saint.
Well, it helps the prosecution, but the defense did the correct thing in opening statement, and they had to do it. They didn't have any choice. I mean, the defense couldn't walk into this trial and say he's the victim of a conspiracy to invent evidence against him. That was never going to work. The thing's on video, and there's lots of other evidence. So they were going to have to say, he is not a delightful guy. You people on the jury probably aren't going to like things that he did. He did engage in things we consider domestic violence, but this is a racketeering case. And I liked that about the opening statement. They made that very clear. You're going to have to judge the crimes alleged here, not whether you like him or dislike him.
Well, that is what that is. Very interesting. It's not like loads of stuff's come out that we didn't know. But it is interesting to watch, even just to watch that these simple things that we've seen are actually now being framed into a case that is being held accountable for, which is a good thing. They seem to think that some of the main takeaways from that, they seem to think he's at least going to be found guilty of one of the charges, which has a jail term of up to 10 years, but probably won't. He might walk for time served, etc. I think he will get done at least on the second one, maybe all three. At least the sex trafficking, the racketeering part, I don't have enough knowledge on.